Hello, everyone. My name is Alison Woodall, and I'm a relocation specialist. That means I get to help you with the financial, logistical, and emotional issues that make moving to a new state so stressful. And today I am talking to Brenton Hanes, and he is a realtor in Douglas County in Colorado, which is just south of Denver. Hey, Brenton, welcome.
Well, hi, Allison. How are you today?
I am doing very well. I am so excited to talk to you. When my husband and I moved from Florida to California, we spent 2 weeks in Colorado, and it is just the most stunningly beautiful state. So I'm excited to learn more about it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we fell in love with Colorado as well. And it's just everywhere you go, the beauty of just Colorado is I'm always blown away by it.
Well,
So,
wonderful. Well, so you weren't born in Colorado. You lived in California and moved there quite recently. Tell me about that.
yes, so I lived in born and raised in Southern California, Thousand Oaks area, Ventura County. I was a real estate broker out there for, gosh, almost 20 years. And I lived in California for 46 years. And we decided to pick up and sell my wife's business and to move to beautiful Colorado about 3 years ago.
Wow. And so when people think of Colorado, they tend to think of Denver, but although you're, relatively close, you are actually out on a ranch and living
Yeah,
that ranching life.
exactly. So we ended up really switching things up. We thought, like, hey, if we're going to move, what do we want our lives to look like? What can we do? What are our interests? And we literally bought a 42-acre ranch in Franktown, Colorado. So that is about 25 minutes east of Castle Rock. And it is just an amazing area where we have views of the entire Front Range and Pikes Peak. And during the summer, I'm a hay farmer now. So I'm learning how to farm and have a tractor. It's a whole new life for me.
Wow. And so what was it that made you leave California? Was it just for that completely different lifestyle or
Yeah, we were kind of getting tired of the California life. There was a little bit of politics that played into that. We felt it was kind of hard to connect with people. Everyone just kind of stuck in the rat race, always working or, kind of stretched a little thin here and there. We were kind of doing the same thing. And we just thought, this is really no way for us to live. This is not how we wanted to live our lives. And so we started just searching around the entire US. In fact, we took 2 motorhome trips with our kids, and we spent many years just kind of spending some time in other states and just getting to know the US more on the Western side, because we still wanted to be close to family and friends. And I actually, before real estate, I was an auto mechanic for Mercedes. And so I'm a little bit of a gearhead. And where I went to school, I did a trade school called Wyotech up in Laramie, Wyoming. And so I had spent a lot of time in Colorado because there's nothing to do in Laramie. So I would go down to Fort Collins and Estes Park, Loveland, Greeley, and just fell in love with it. And I was actually going to move there 28 years ago. But then I met my wife, and she was worth staying in California for. And finally full circle came, and it was just one of those bucket list things, like I want to move to Colorado. And I was fortunate enough to get my wife and kids on board, and we live a completely different life. And my closest neighbor behind me is a half mile, and we have room for motorcycles and everything else,
wow.
so it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that just sounds amazing. But for someone maybe who is not necessarily looking for a giant acreage, maybe they want
Right.
just maybe in more of a not suburban, but more like maybe a small amount, a larger plot, but it may be closer to civilization. Tell me, kind of, what is your area like? Is that available to people, or is it just out in the middle of nowhere?
It is. I know we went a little extreme on the acreage size, and you can actually go a lot more than that. But yes, I mean, there's definitely 2-acre lots near me. There's stuff that's smaller than that. And like I said, we're pretty close to Castle Rock and Parker. And there's a lot of new construction, and those towns are really growing. And there's a lot of opportunity, actually full spectrum, because you can be out in the country really quick, but yet be close to all the amenities like Costco and, outdoor malls and outlet centers. And I mean, for us Californians, there's in and outs popping up everywhere, which has been just magical for us, a little taste of home. And so, yeah, I mean, we're far out, but yet we're close, and all of the regular stuff of city life is right there as well. And I actually broker deals all over the place in those areas, whether it be just a brand new construction or tract home, and or in the suburbs, or full acreage and land. So I'm pretty diverse in the brokerage that I get to do.
Okay, wonderful. And so presumably with that diversity comes diversity of price as well. If,
Exactly.
obviously I'm guessing that, if I wanted that dream ranch on a lot of acreage, that comes with a dream price point. But what would be kind of, like the lower end of your price? What would be considered an affordable house or home?
Sure, affordable house out here, not going into townhomes or condos, you could probably get in the $650 range. And then it's just on up from there, right? So ranches can go, depending on square footages and type of home and finishes. I mean, it could be in the millions for sure. So when we moved 3 years ago, I think we paid $800,000 for our ranch. It's probably in the 1.2 to 1.3 range now, just because, every area has really had that accelerated appreciation over the last couple of years. But I mean, things are still pretty affordable depending on where you look in Colorado, and compared to some of the areas in Southern California, especially.
Okay, you see, I still have what I consider a Georgia mentality. So I'm just northeast of Atlanta, and if you're looking in the right area, you can still find a house for 200,000. So,
yeah, in California, that's like a down payment, I think, a lot of times, and
it is. But I coach a lot of people who are, they're desperate to leave California and they have a tiny budget, or they're maybe not on the property ladder. And that's why I always ask, what is your low end price point? Because if you have a very small budget, or if you're trying to get on that property ladder, there are plenty of places for you to go. But it may not be, suburban Denver or some stunning ranch out in the most beautiful part of Colorado, because, where you live is absolutely stunning.
Right. In the Front Range, what we consider the Front Range, which is the I-25 corridor from Colorado Springs up to Fort Collins, that's going to be your high density, right? So obviously demand brings prices up. So the further east you go, prices kind of typically drop. So you can get in areas that are up and coming, that are in a more affordable price range, like Strasburg, Bennett, things like that off I-70 corridor, that are still relatively close to the city, with some decent views of the mountains. And that's a big deal out here in Colorado. You want to look at the Rocky Mountains. I mean, it's just amazing. And even if you go on the western slope, like over by Grand Junction, Grand Junction is a growing city. And I think you could probably get in Grand Junction probably in the 350 range. And it's really growing out there as well. So I network with a lot of brokers all over the state, and have great contacts, and try and stay on top of not only my area, but the entire state for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Okay. And so in terms of property taxes, that's always a concern for people. Do you have high property taxes, or what's the kind of range there?
It varies quite drastically in Colorado, depending on where you're at. Now, a lot of the new construction we're seeing, they'll have a metro tax involved, a part of their property taxes, and that's kind of I consider that more of an HOA fee. So it's more of when the city would handle a lot of the HOA stuff. So it's technically an HOA fee, but the metro, they don't separate it. So it looks like it has high property taxes, but then when you look at it, it doesn't have an HOA fee. So you really have to understand the area and the county and even the city that you're in to really dissect some of that stuff. But you can get in pretty low taxes in some areas, like El Paso County, are relatively good on a well-established home. But it's not like California, where you have more of a set rate and Prop 13 to kind of control your taxes as well. But it's also not like Texas, where you're not paying state income tax, but you're paying for it in your property tax.
Okay. So the lesson from that is deal with a realtor who understands the taxes and can tell you the specific taxes, but you're not going to be paying like Texas property
You're
tax.
not going to be like Texas or Ohio, and and the state income tax is lower. So I always tell people, look at everything across the board as far as your expenses as you compare. Don't get laser focused on, well, my taxes here are more than there, but then you're not looking at the entire spectrum to make sure when you're looking at all your income and expense out, like am I ahead from California, or am I the same, or am I behind? So.
Okay. Perfect. And are you, I know all real estate markets are incredibly hot right now. Are you in a, ridiculous multiple offer situation, or just a few multiple offers?
I would say we're in some areas, we're definitely in that ridiculous. What I like to do with my clients is I like to look at the aged inventory, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Age inventory would be like 7 days. And versus, basically, if the home didn't get through the weekend sold, what's going on? Why didn't it? Is it a condition issue? Do we have some structural stuff going on, or is it just a straight pricing issue? Or is it more like the iBuyers, like, your Zillow and OfferPad, where they're just really outrageously high, and that we can kind of maybe get our foot in the door that way. So, it's just being very strategic about it. I mean, we're able to get our clients under contract. We just have to kind of think outside the box a little bit more than what we normally have. So.
Okay, well, perfect. And then, so just talking about like the area, obviously it's beautiful and mountainous and everything, and you've got tons of outdoor activities, but you still have the amenities that you need. What are your schools like? Are there any colleges in your area if people have older kids?
Yeah, I mean, our schools are really rated very well. There are the University of Colorado schools that are around. I'm very close to Colorado Springs. It has a lot of campuses as well. I mean, schooling is really good, and it's also a very good homeschooling state as well. It's very homeschool friendly. In fact, me and my wife, since we're a little bit further out, we chose to homeschool, and we've been very happy with that. And it's actually given us more freedom, but we don't have any problem with the school system here. In fact, in Douglas County, there's no mask mandate for schools or any mask mandates or that I'm aware of in anything. So it's been kind of nice.
Okay, well, wonderful. So then I have to ask about winter and
Yes.
weather and snow, because I know summers are beautiful because we travel through Colorado in summer. But when I think of Colorado, I think about snow and skiing and, winter.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're set up for winter. How big an impact does it have if you're not used to snow?
I want to say there's probably 5 to 7 days that it really kind of impacts and changes your course of the day, for sure. I got snow coming in here in the next couple hours. It's just going to be a little nothing, maybe an inch. But I know that's like one of the big misconceptions of Colorado is, oh my gosh, the winters. Well, most people are seeing like Breckenridge, Copper Mountain, Vail, and those are the mountain cities, and those substantially higher. They get a lot more snow. Colorado, it's really interesting. It snows and melts and snows and melts, and you might have snow stick around for a week if it's cold enough, but it really isn't too bad, and it's really real fluffy and light. I mean, you can get a leaf blower out most of the time in winter and just blow it off your driveway. And in the spring, we'll get the heavier wet snow, which is a little bit more backbreaking and shoveling. But it's really coming from where I lived close to Malibu. I mean, I actually enjoy having the seasons. The snow hasn't been bad. Maybe I'm still in that novelty phase, but it hasn't been an issue at all for us. We've had a couple ice storms in the last couple of years, and that kind of, you want to stay off the roads there. But once you kind of figure it out, and if you have the right car, you don't want a rear-wheel drive car. So if you have a two-wheel drive pickup, you definitely want to sell it in California. You'll get more for it out there. Get that four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive car, and it'll make all the difference in the world, and it won't be that big of an issue.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's interesting, because I've always imagined that Colorado, it was kind of like the Midwest where it snows and then it stays around. So because that was my experience of snow in England. I mean, it doesn't snow in England as much now as it did, when I
Right.
was a kid, but it would snow and then it would thaw and then it would snow, and it was easy to move.
Yep.
And what you say about a rear wheel drive vehicle is so true. Growing up in England, I had I think it was a Ford Focus. It was just front wheel drive, could get anywhere in that car. Now I
Right.
drive an F-150. I wouldn't go anywhere near any snow or ice in my truck because it's rear wheel drive. It's not four wheel drive.
Right.
And it just slides. It's the most horrible feeling. I would take a Ford Focus over my F-150 any day.
Definitely. And it's one of those things too. I always tell my clients, like, we have these conversations about cars because you need the right car, but if you're, looking to buy a home, you don't want to quite make that purchase yet because we don't want to impact credit. So I always tell them, look at, if you have a F-150 that's two-wheel drive, sell it in California because nobody's going to want that truck out here. It'll be hard to sell. You won't get as much for it. Mm-hmm. And just front-wheel drive cars are great. I got my son a 1998 Honda Accord that's front-wheel drive, and it works fine. There are some days that are like, okay, you're not driving, but it's very few, and what I've noticed on some of those snow days, you get that family time that you just don't necessarily get back in California. Like a snow day, you get the fireplace going, you get the board games out, and you're hunkered down as a family, and it's I don't know, I enjoy it, and it's made me rethink a couple things, and it's kind of nice to slow down on those days for sure. So
I would agree. So, I mean, even in Atlanta, because if Atlanta gets snow after, I think it was Snowmageddon or Snowpocalypse or something, right, where all these little kids had to sleep at school because they couldn't get home. It was just crazy. But now Atlanta knows if it snows and there's a snow day, we don't go anywhere. And it's so nice. And people laugh at Southerners who are not prepared for the snow. Well, we're not. It never happens. And if it does, then you just stay home and enjoy it. So
enjoy each other as a family. I mean, you get these family days where in California, I think, it's go, 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 go. And it's always sunshine and, maybe some rain if you're lucky, and you don't get those family snow days. I mean, I don't know. I really enjoy it. It's been fun for us.
Yes, I think every state has the things that make it special. And so winter, you've made it sound like it's very doable. I may have to trade my truck, but which would be fine.
Right.
But like I say, you don't need a 4-wheel drive vehicle. 9 times out of 10, you can get somewhere just in a front-wheel drive vehicle.
Yes.
What are summers like? Because I thought summer was beautiful, but does it get very hot in certain places, or is it much more temperate?
So I've never seen triple digits at my house. I'm a little bit higher than Denver, so I'm at 6,800 feet. So when the sun goes down, it really is nice and cool. It's nice. It's not unbearable. It's a dry desert climate, so you don't have a lot of humidity, and so it just makes it. I don't know. You hear the natives going, "Oh man, it's so hot." I'm like, "Man, you've never been to Palm Springs in August. Like this is nothing." So 95 degrees. Yeah, you just have to stay hydrated like anywhere else, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's just the green season from spring into late summer is just unbelievable. And obviously with the pine trees, they're always green, but it's magical for us. I love having those seasons and the sunsets over the Rockies in the summertime. We'll get the fire going in the backyard and, get some burgers going, have people over and just really enjoy the outside. It's just, to me, I feel like I'm outside more now in Colorado than I ever was in California.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, is there anything that you miss about California, or is life so idyllic in Colorado that there's nothing you miss?
Well, take it for granted, I was never a big beach guy. Obviously I'm not all tanned and I wasn't the big surfer, right? So, I get it when people go, man, I'll miss the beach. And I understand that. For me, a river is just as good as the beach, if not better. And we'll go up to the Platte River. It's not far. We got the mountains. The biggest thing I miss is just friends and family. I don't miss the crowds of people. So where I'm at, I don't have a lot of crowds, even though it is growing. But California is a beautiful state. There's no doubt about it. It's like 3 states in one. Southern California is amazing. Central California is amazing. And same with Northern California. And Colorado has its own unique little flair with the mountains. I mean, Colorado's all about the mountains, all about the mountains. So we love going to the mountains, skiing. And I mean, skiing's close by, a couple hours. I can be to Breckenridge, and it's easy. It's fun. The family loves it. I
So
feel more.
When you mentioned not being near the ocean, are there any lakes? Because I always say sometimes you just need to be near water. And I know you said the Platte River, but I'm trying to think about the lake. But they're probably they're cold lakes. They're not like southern lakes where you can actually.
They're cold. They're definitely snow runoff lakes, right? And we have Chatfield, which is right there is the big lake, off of C470 and Littleton Highlands Ranch, kind of like that general pocket, just to kind of give you some more bigger landmarks. And water skiing, wakeboarding all day long. And then you go up in the mountain, there's some lakes. There's a great hike to Hanging Lake. There's just, I mean, it's all there, right? Because you have the snow melt, and it's not like Minnesota lakes, right, where they're everywhere. But we have our lakes and we love them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, wonderful. Well, is there anything else that you think people should know when they're leaving California and moving to Colorado?
I would say give Colorado a chance. I know a lot of times right now, the big migration is probably based off of politics. And I know Colorado doesn't hit a lot of people's markers because of that first checkbox of politics, I would say, politics here are set by Denver and Boulder primarily. Everywhere else you go is more of a conservative climate. And it's reflected so in its people and how things are run. And when I was searching, right, I mean, that was a box for me to check, and not to make this anything political, but I know that is a hot topic. I would say, really do your homework on Colorado. I know it's not for everyone. And I mean, we looked at Texas and Florida, and I just needed a little bit more scenery for me as far as mountains. That's what was calling me. And I don't have any qualms with any of those states. For me, I had different boxes to check. I would say, hey, check it out. You guys can always call me direct, and I'll even show you around and take you all the cool spots and show you what Colorado's offering, see if it's a contender or not.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know it's a contender for me. I mean, I love my time in Florida, but my kids would get excited when we went over railroad tracks because that was the closest you got to a hill in Florida.
Yeah.
So, yep. But then you got the beaches in Florida. So every state is different. But you've sold me on Colorado. We had the most amazing couple of weeks. We traveled through Colorado at the height of COVID, and so places that we couldn't normally have gone to had nobody was traveling. So we got to stay in the most beautiful, amazing places, and everybody was so excited to see us because there just weren't any tourists. So it was great experience.
Yeah, one of the things I love is just seeing the wildlife. I mean, there's so much deer and elk and foxes. It's just, I've never seen so much wildlife. And I mean, obviously Colorado has amazing hunting and things like that too, if you're into that. And we just love to just sit in the backyard and watch the deer and the antelope play. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, one of the craziest things, we were somewhere up, because we stayed in Estes Park, we were somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, and we were looking down on this valley, and all these people were watching something, and it was a coyote chasing this baby elk. And it was like an hour. We just watched. I mean, in the end, the coyote got bored and ran off. But it was so funny listening to people trying to decide what was chasing the elk, and they were like, it's a dog and it's a cow and we were like, no, I think it's a coyote and I think it's a small elk. But it was fascinating. We saw a moose, we saw a bear, and it was just it's just amazing. I love Colorado.
Well, you did good if you found a moose. They're hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, we saw a moose that my son spotted it when we were going up one of the mountain back roads, and it was just in a little meadow eating. And then we saw two more moose and a baby walking alongside a lake. So my husband is a hunter. And so there's a meme I saw that men can't find like the ketchup on the shelf in the fridge, but they can see a moose that's like 2 miles away while they're driving.
Yep, guilty.
That is my husband. He's like, see all those deer over there? I'm like, No, where? Aren't you supposed to be focusing on the road and there'll be some deer like half a mile away?
I could probably find it without my glasses on too, right? While I'm driving, texting, right? Oh, look at there's a moose over there. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, wonderful. Well, so if someone wants to contact you, what is the best way to contact you?
Best way is always on my cell phone. My phone number is 720-201-5402, or by email, which is really easy. It's my first and last name. So BRENTONHANES@me.com. And I also run a Facebook group. So for you guys that are on Facebook and have found this group, you could definitely find our group to kind of help explore Colorado. It's called Moving to Colorado from California. So it's actually a really great group geared towards Californians and meeting our needs that on all the questions that we had. It's like you said, snow and cars, and which way should my house be facing if I want to not shovel as much snow? And we get into all that fun stuff. And I have a bunch of locals in it and everyone else. So it's not just me in there posting for sure. But definitely find us on there as well. We'd love to help you guys out and explore Colorado.
Wonderful. Well, I will post all the links to Brenton's information in the wherever you're watching this in the post information. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to come back to Colorado.
We'd love to have you over to the ranch too. So let us know when you come. We'll have you over for dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.